So, officially welcome, Sue and John.
Hi, John.
Thanks for joining. Right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see if anyone else joins, but yeah. So we've done our little sharing of the movie last night. Let me share my screen. Have a little look at today's email. Oh, right. Officially, it's just so there was just a recording. I'd forgotten to stop it. Okay. So where are we? We're going there. Okay. Let me just. So just want to have a quick chat about some of these ideas I put in the email. And the quote and Advaita Vedanta, and then we'll go into the lesson. John, do you want to read the quote?
Yep. Ignorance has always been the weapon of tyrants. Enlightenment, the salvation of the free. Bill Richardson.
He was. There were two Bill Richardson I found. I think it was a senator. I think a U.S. senator who wrote that. But it doesn't really matter who wrote it because the sentiment is true. So on the left, there's book burning in Nazi Germany. On the right, the light shining onto a book that symbolizes knowledge. And my comments on it are that the ignorance or unawareness of truth is the greatest weapon of the ego, because if you start to become aware of the truth, then it undoes the ego completely. Enlightenment is the bringing of light into one's mind or awareness, and this is the only way to really be free of the tyranny of this false belief system. While you seem to be living in the world and ultimately escape from the world entirely, which is salvation that Bill Richardson speaks of. So enlightenment and salvation are really synonymous, just different words describing the same concept. And it's both a process. Words can be used to refer to both the process, the path of love and freedom and happiness that you walk while you're apparently living in the world, as well as to the end result of walking this path consistently. You finally lay aside your body, and the awareness of love is perfect. So it's the process as well as the end goal. And that awareness of love, or pure formless awareness, will mean that you don't need to reincarnate. You completely let go of the desire for a separate identity the body just gives form to. So this is really the universal goal of any authentic spiritual path. For example, in the Eastern teachings, Advaita, Vedanta, and Buddhism all talk about it. Oh, there's Kim joining us. That's nice. Advaita, Vedanta, and Buddhism talk about awakening or liberation from the cycle of birth and death. And this is the ultimate goal of any serious initiate following these spiritual paths is awakening from the dream, returning back to the state of pure formless awareness. Let's say hello to Kim. Looks like she's still connecting to audio. So I just wanted to have a quick chat. Hi, Kim. How are you?
Hi, Jono. Hi, John. Hi, Sue. Good, and you?
Hi, Kim.
Thanks for joining us. Nice to not see you yet. There we go. Yeah, welcome. So we just kind of started. Anything to share before we go further? Or not really? Kim, have you got anything to share?
Nothing major. Just actually, I went to my Catholic church service today for the church I grew up going to. It was good
Okay.
for Easter.
Okay. Nice. Are you in Cape Town or Joburg?
Joburg was for this weekend, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Go back on Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Just
Nice.
visiting family and
Yes.
friends, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you can, there's salvation and enlightenment and holiness everywhere if you see it. So in these, it might not be the full truth, but you can see it there if you want to. Sure.
Right, spoke ultimately around unconditional love. So I
Did
think
they?
that message is still.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that was really what Jesus came to teach. Unconditional love. So we watched a movie. I don't know if you watched it. I sent it out a few weeks ago, called Risen last night, which is the Jesus story.
Yeah, I know. I have seen it before, and I was listening. I woke up at 2 a.m. with a splitting headache and very stiff neck. I was very tired last night, so I went to bed early, and I couldn't get back to sleep. I was trying to drink water, and then I listened to your commentary, and I also looked at a few clips again. So I have seen it before, but yeah. So you could say I kind of watched it, but between, I think I only got back to sleep around 4:30.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Good thing it was a Sunday, so hopefully you managed to sleep in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to talk about Advaita Vedanta a little bit, because I mentioned it quite a bit, and in fact Bill Thetford talks about the course being the Christian form of the Vedanta, Christian version of the Vedanta. I think he's quoted as in an interview he did. So I've mentioned it quite a few times. Maybe I thought we just have a little bit. We won't go too deeply into it because it's a whole path on its own. But it's saying much the same thing, very much the same thing as A Course in Miracles. So it's part of the Hindu tradition, path of textual exegesis. Wow. What does exegesis mean? I've actually seen that word. Let's have a look. Exegesis. Critical explanation or interpretation of a text, especially of a scripture. Okay. So I guess that's kind of what we're doing. Critical explanation or interpretation of a text. We're doing exegesis of the Course in Miracles. Spiritual discipline and experience. So really Advaita talks about the ultimate. Advaita literally means non-secondness or non-two-ness. So it's usually translated as non-dualism, and equated with monism, which is the idea of oneness. And so in Advaita, the goal is the state of moksha, which they attain through disidentification from the body-mind complex, in other words, the ego, in Course in Miracles terms, and the notion of being the doer. And so this knowledge of one's true identity as Atman Brahman. So the Atman is the awareness in your own mind of Brahman, which is this transcendent reality. Quite similar to the idea of the Holy Spirit, really. Holy Spirit is the awareness in your own mind of this transcendent truth or reality that we call God. But they talk about the idea of Sat Chit Ananda in Advaita. So Sat, you might have heard of the Sat, is the ultimate reality. True reality or pure existence. So that would translate into God, as A Course in Miracles terms it. Chit, pure awareness or consciousness. So we talk about pure formless awareness. So Chit is your own awareness of that. in your own mind, awareness of that true reality. So that's your pure formless awareness. You notice almost the same, pure awareness. Just add in formless there. Pure formless awareness would be chit. And then ananda is the state of mind that it takes you into, which is bliss. So they're saying sat being the ultimate reality, chit being your awareness of that reality, will take you into this superconscious blissful state where there's only love and peace and joy. And in that, the individual self is not true, right? So Advaita is really saying the same thing as the Course. This individual self simply disappears in Brahman, and ultimately Brahman is all there is. So it's very similar, pretty much identical to what the Course in Miracles is teaching, although the Course has some Western psychological concepts in it and talks about guilt and projection, and I'm not sure if Advaita goes into that kind of detail, but essentially the metaphysics of it are the same. And in fact, the Matrix was based on Advaita's teachings, Advaita Vedanta's teachings, because the two Wachowski brothers, as they were then, studied Advaita, and they put these teachings into the movie. They were the foundation of the movie. So it's really saying the same thing. It's got the same fundamental idea. I just think the Course is more helpful in terms of actually how to do it. So it talks about the spiritual discipline of meditation. So there's this idea that beyond striving and effort is Brahman, and there's no effort to get there. But then it also prescribes elaborate preparatory practice, including yogic samadhi and contemplation, which poses a paradox. So it's effortless, but you need to exert effort to get there, which is kind of the paradox we're dealing with in the Course as well. Because you need do nothing, says Jesus at some point, and then he's saying, but while you seem to be here, you need to practice and do all this mind training to unwind your mind. So there is a paradox in there, but it's only a paradox in time and space. Ultimately, there's no paradox, because it's not difficult to be who you really are once you've attained that state of enlightenment or salvation. So this is a very, very ancient tradition. This is the ancient, oldest tradition of Vedanta. So it goes way, way back, thousands of years, and precedes a lot of subsequent knowledge, like the Bhagavad Gita and so on. So just so you know, that's kind of what the Course runs in parallel to, attend them to, in the Eastern tradition, and is very much the same thing as Advaita. And Buddhism. The Buddha would have been familiar. Sorry, excuse me. Buddha would have been familiar with all of this. He studied extensively, looked at all the various spiritual paths, and he practiced many of the techniques. He would have been exposed to Advaita, and he kind of adapted and found another way, what he called the middle way to liberation. He said, this extreme asceticism isn't going to get you there, like starving yourself or meditating in uncomfortable postures for hours and hours isn't going to get you there. What's going to get you there is what he called the middle way, which was this way that was sat between craving or a desire and aversion. So between those extremes that the ego mind wants to take you into, lies this pure formless awareness, just an awareness of what is. And he called that the middle way, which he didn't think could be attained through various extremes, because he tried all of that and it didn't work. And he found when he let go of all of that, let go of all the striving and the effort, that that's when he came into his enlightenment. So that's just a little bit of a dip into a couple of other spiritual paths that correlate and relate quite closely to the Course. just so you know. And I mean, there's a lot more study you can do on them. But honestly, I don't think it's necessary. The course contains the same material, and it's designed for a Western mind in a very, very specific way to help us to undo our Western egoic consciousness. So I haven't found a better path for most people in this modern world we live in than A Course in Miracles, because it's so practical. Gives us these mind training lessons, and then he's also got an understanding that I've never seen before in any other spiritual tradition of guilt, how the metaphysics of the ego translate into guilt and fear and sin and attack, and that explanation is not contained in any other spiritual path to that degree. So okay, so any questions on that? Happy with Advaita, Buddhism. Oh yeah, and then I just wanted to talk about this parable. I don't know if you watched it. It's only a short 5-minute video. So the parable of the dying king, I'll just relate it quickly. There's this king who realizes he's dying. He's had quite a good life, and he has 4 wives. And so he goes to them. He's scared of being alone on the other side. So he goes to his 4th wife, who he's favored the most, and he says, will you follow me into the afterlife? And she just turns her back and says, no, no way, I'm not. Then he goes to the 3rd one, and this is the wife he also favored her. He's like 2nd favorite, and he was always scared that she'd leave him. She'd go to another man. And she said, will you follow me? And she says, no, actually I'm enjoying this life too much. I'm enjoying the fine things of this world, and I'm going to remarry. I'm going to remarry another king after you've died. So then he goes to the 2nd wife, who has been kind of his trusted confidant, and has helped him with a lot of difficult situations in his life. And he asks her, and she says, I'm really sorry, but I can't help you out this time. I'll make all the arrangements, the funeral arrangements. I'll make sure everything's taken care of, but I can't go with you. And so he's feeling a bit disappointed and crestfallen. And then his 1st wife comes and says, I'll go with you all the way. She said, I've always been with you. I was your 1st wife, and I'll go with you into the afterlife. And then he feels kind of ashamed because he's neglected her his whole life, and she's kind of skinny and undernourished. But now, she's the one who's truly loyal and will go with him. And so it's a parable, really, which is there as a teaching story for us. So the 4th wife is symbolic of the body, and we adorn the body with lots of clothes and jewelry and so on. And of course, the body cannot go with us at all. We leave the body behind here, so there's just no way it can go. Hence the 4th wife turning her back on him, saying no way. And the 3rd wife is symbolic of the possessions, status, and possessions in this world, material possessions, money, and that kind of thing. And of course, the king was always worried that these would leave him. So the fear of loss always goes with attachment to those things. Which is why the 3rd wife said, well, I'll remarry, because those possessions are going to go somewhere else. They're going to be inherited by someone else, so you don't really own them. The 2nd wife, it represents family and friends, who can be, your friends. They can be very loyal. You can trust them, but they can't go with you and to the afterlife. Ultimately, we're alone in that. And the 1st wife is the soul, or in our terms, our true mind. Jesus doesn't really talk about soul very much, once or twice, but it's our true mind, our true awareness, that's with us always. It's always been there. It came in with us. It's been there, often neglected, because we've paid more attention to the body and possessions and family and friends. but it's always been there, and it's going to go with us wherever we go. It's our true awareness. So when we die, it's there with us. It's the only thing that goes with us. All the other things we have to leave behind, which kind of the moral of the parable is that none of those things really matter. The fourth, third, and second wives don't really matter at all, ultimately. They seem to matter in this world, but ultimately only that soul or true mind matters. So a nice parable, nice story, just to remind us of really what the Course is saying. This is what we're giving everything to, and saying, let's acknowledge this first wife and honor it truly while we're here, rather than forgetting about it and only remembering it on our deathbeds. So if you want to watch the parable, you're most welcome to. It's in your email, and I'll put in the text message as well for today. Okay, so any questions on that, or shall we move swiftly on to the lesson?
Sorry, just coming back to...
Yeah, Kim?
No, just coming back to the Advaita Vedanta. So just somehow related to that, a few months ago, somehow on YouTube, it came up on my feed. I think some content on YouTube from the I don't know if you've heard of it, Sat Yoga Studio. Sorry, Sat Yoga, the Sat Yoga Studio. It's an ashram based in Costa Rica. I don't know if it rings a bell with anyone. Sat Yoga Ashram.
Okay.
And they have a YouTube channel as well. And a website. And it was founded by Shunya Murti, who sounds actually American accent, or maybe Canadian, who's the spiritual teacher. And I've listened to a couple of the material with him speaking from time to time, and the themes are so common to Course. The non-duality, you have to let go of the ego, but also because he's done, so if I look at his biography, he's gone on a spiritual path, and he has a meditation practice and numerous forms of yoga, but apprenticeship with, they list different, I suppose, yogis, but the teachings of such Eastern approaches to consciousness, such as Sankhya, Advaita, Advaya, and insights to esoteric Shaivism and Buddhism, supplemented by the intensive study of Western metaphysics and profound exploration of the dimensions opened by, I don't even know what this word is, entheogens. So he also brings in like Taoism, the Kabbalah, mystical Christianity. But really he does, the themes that come through constantly are like the non-duality, letting go of the ego, and that it's more important now than ever because, bring in the Hindu side of things, the Kali Yuga, and we're kind of at the end of it's coming with the destruction, and then he brings in what's happening currently, not going too much into the detail, but alluding to the pandemic, the geopolitical stuff with the crisis with the war with Ukraine and that, and it's like excuse my language, but shit is coming basically, and you have to prepare for it, and this is how you prepare for it. Essentially, exactly. You have to drop the ego and go into eternity. I mean, go to the eternal. Yeah.
Well, it's the only way, yeah. There's no other place to escape to. As long as you believe in time and space, then you're here. You got to deal with whatever's going on Earth. But Advaita, is a tradition of uncompromising non-duality. Traditional Advaita. There's other schools of it, as with all things. I spoke to a guy last year and said, "Oh, I'm of the other school of Advaita." Oh, what's that one then? The dualistic school of non-duality. All right, okay, that's interesting. The alternative, so that does happen because not everyone's ready to accept the pure, uncompromising message of it. It's like it's this or that. It's this world or it's heaven. That's really the message of Advaita and the Course in Miracles very clearly. And you must choose. You can't have both. You choose one, you deny the other. This guy was like, no, why do I have to choose? Well, because they're opposite realities, and you can't really reconcile them. That's why. As long as you believe you can have both, you have a split mind, and you're not going to experience the peace of God. Then you're going to experience the conflict and the turmoil that go with having a split mind, which we're seeing played out in the world. Possibly more than ever. The world's always been full of conflict, but I think now there's a very clear choice. Everyone's we've been called upon. As you say, the shit hits the fan. You're called upon to make a choice as to how you're going to process this and deal with it. Are you going to go into like, oh my God, this is terrible, and I'm fearful, and I'm just going to kind of disintegrate into a fearful a mess, or am I going to really apply these teachings and just say, this is the only way. I've got to let all this go in my own mind. Whatever's happening here is just illusion, and I'm not going to give it any headspace. And that's really the essential teaching of Advaita. It's the same as the Course in Miracles. It's not anything different. It's the same fundamental truth, just different language, maybe some different approaches as to how they approach it. Maybe more focus on meditation. But Bill Thetford, who was one of the co-scribes, said, it's this is the Christian form of the Vedanta. That's what he called the Course in Miracles. So he was well aware of the connection between them. And then, if you pull in some of the other paths, there's other non-dual paths. If you look at Christian mysticism, it touches on non-duality. You look at Kabbalah, all of them start going into non-duality to one degree or another, some not fully, but they all touch on it. The idea it's called the Perennial Philosophy, that there is another transcendent reality beyond this one. That's the Perennial Philosophy that runs through all these spiritual traditions. And so this Course in Miracles is another version. Vita is a version, Course in Miracles is a version of this Perennial Philosophy that's really saying, look, there's another reality. And this reality isn't ultimate truth. It's actually a fiction. It's false. And what you really want is this true reality. And so how do you find it? That then becomes the task of the spiritual teacher on that path, is to try and help you to find it in your own mind. Yeah, so thanks for that. It's a little bit of context. But yeah, it's out there. Advaita is thousands of years old, and it seems to have come into a bit more prominence in the last sort of 50 odd years. As the Eastern stuff came into Western consciousness from, say, the beginning of last century, Advaita came in as well, and a lot of people started to look at it. Before that, it was very, very, very unknown. A lot of people started to look at it, study it, and compare it then to some other traditions as well. Okay, so any other questions, comments on Advaita or anything else?
No, that's fine.
Okay, Buddhism. We've talked quite a bit about Buddhism, and there's a lot of similarities with the Course. Some versions of Buddhism aren't, I would say, non-dual, but strictly speaking, if you true to Buddha's teachings, it is actually a non-dual teaching. He was talking about, relinquishing everything, letting everything go, getting out of craving and aversion, and going into nirvana, which is pure formless awareness, which is this transcendent reality. So Buddhism, in truth, is non-dual, but as with Christianity, it's been misinterpreted, and there's various versions of it which are not always non-dual.
Is there any Islamic? Does Sufism also touch on non-duality?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
There's a Islamic. Is that the Islamic mystic?
Yeah. The Sufis are the Islamic mystics who, also, acknowledge that transcendent. Allah is just the name for this transcendent reality, which the Sufis talk very much about the heart. The path of the heart, and you're going into the heart and feeling and beyond the mind. And it's pity Lucy's actually not here because she's studied Sufism for quite a while. So if you go into any of the mystical traditions of any of these religions, Christian mysticism as well, that's where it ends up. It ends up in non-duality at the ultimate expression of it, which then must cause you to wonder, well, maybe this is the truth then. If every single spiritual teaching at its highest says really the same thing. Different language, they've got different terms for these concepts for sure, and different practices as well. But essentially they're saying the same thing, then surely it must be true. And every great spiritual teacher, master, has really taught the same thing. You look at Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, who else? More recently, Ramana, and some of the other Eastern masters, and they all saying the same thing. There's one reality. It's unity. Oneness is true, and separation is not. That's the ultimate truth, which seems to be shared by all these spiritual teachings and teachers. There's nowhere else to go but oneness. That's the ultimate truth, and of course it's just trying to teach us that in a very. I like his approach because I think it speaks to the Western mind. We have a very logical, kind of intellectual, rational way of processing the world, and so he's speaking to that. Okay, so let's be logical about it. Let's look at the logic, and using that logic, you can start breaking the logic of the ego, of the belief in separation, if you look at it clearly enough. So that's what he's doing. So his approach is designed for the modern Western mind to help us to undo our belief and go into a state of ultimately transcendent awareness, where logic falls away. There's no need for logic if you're simply one with your source. But the logic is required in the undoing of it. Okay, so shall we go into the lesson then?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So let's just start another recording. So lesson 71. Kim, do you want to read the key idea and then paragraph 1 for us?
Yeah, I can read the key idea, and then will you scroll to the paragraph 1?
Yes, I will.
Okay,
I'm going to do that before you read the key idea.
Okay. Only God's plan for salvation will work.
And I've given the alternatives. So only love's plan for awakening will work. It's another way of saying that.
Only love's plan for awakening will work.
So it's another way of framing the same thing. So what I've done here is I've got the original paragraph and then a translated version with alternative terms. So read the first one and then read the second one, and we'll just unpack it line by line as you read the second one.
You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course. Yet after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it.
Okay. So there's the alternative version where I've given you the translations. Do you want to read that?
Both of them or one of them?
No, just the alternative. When I say
Oh,
alternative,
okay, sorry, okay.
the
Yeah,
alternative
number 2, okay. You may not realize that the belief in separation, okay. You may not realize that the belief in separation has set up a plan for awakening in opposition to loves. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of love's, you also believe that to accept love's plan in place of the belief of separation is to be damned.
Yeah.
This sounds preposterous, of course, yet after we have considered just what the belief in separation's plan is, perhaps you'll realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it.
Okay. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how we've been operating in life, is according to ego's plan. And you don't know it when you don't know what the ego is, if you don't know the difference. So it starts with ignorance is, I mean, there's that expression, ignorance is bliss. Not really, but I think at the time, because it's a struggle to, there's work to get to the other side or to learn about the other side. I mean, even in the context of like learning about God, it's like a concept rather than like the truth, I think. Somewhere out there conceptually or intellectually. So, I mean, I think people then fit it into their lives with the ego.
Yeah, the ego takes charge of the spiritual journey of awakening. It says, well, so you're not happy, but I'll give you a plan to be happier. Of course, it's always got an alternative plan. And saying this plan, this is this plan which you believe, and it's actually the opposite of love's. So you believe that to accept love's plan in place of the belief in separation's plan is to be damned, which sounds preposterous, but he says, well, let's consider it, just what the belief in separation's plan is. Perhaps you'll realize that actually you do believe in it. So he's going to unpack it for us.
Although the damned thing sounds a bit, I don't know about the damned part. I think it's more a case of it's probably that you don't want to give up the ego rather than feel ultimately damned. Because damned for me, the traditional thing.
We actually think what he's saying is we
like
actually think that love is going to condemn us. Yeah, well, this is the illusion. The ego's terrified of love and says, if you accept love's plan, then you're damned, you're condemned, you're doomed. And he's saying this sounds preposterous, but actually, if you look at it, then maybe you'll realize that however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. So he's gonna get us to look very clearly at this ego's plan for salvation and unpack it as he does with such detailed analysis, so that we can just lay it all out and just see what it is. And then he starts to help us to undo our belief in it, because it's clearly ridiculous, preposterous. Okay, so any thoughts on number 1?
No, I think it's good.
Happy to move on to number 2. Okay, John, will you read number 2 for us?
Yep. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe. It says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. So very much the ego's plan based is centered around grievances. I mean, I would have thought it was.
Do you want to read the second one? The alternative. And we'll just unpack it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The belief in separations plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event would change, you would be happy. Thus, the source of awakening is constantly perceived as outside yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be happy. The change of mind necessary for awakening is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself.
Okay, so any thoughts on?
Well, interesting that it says ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. I would have thought it was around holding grievances and creating desires. But happy to go with it.
Well, it does both. So desire means expectation. It's usually you're disappointed, and then you hold a grievance because your expectation isn't met. So it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
If you desire, the more you desire something, the more you hold a grievance. So it's
all designed to put everything outside of us, to blame everything on the illusion, the world outside. Not, it's all a detraction from looking within.
Yeah, that's really the key message. And if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be, I didn't use the word saved, I translated it as happy. Because saved, we're like, well, that maybe ultimately, but in our minds, how we perceive it is, oh, well, if something would change, then I'd be happy.
Yeah.
And so we think, that this thing that needs to change will then make us happy, and that's going to save us, quote unquote. And of course, it's always external. Some external thing, event, person, place, substance, material wealth, whatever it is, outside of us is going to do the trick. And so it keeps us in pursuit of that, and keeps saying, well, if this were different, if only I could have this, if I had more money, if I had the partner of my dreams, or if I had whatever, I would be happy. So kind of related to this is desire, isn't it? Can you see how it's woven into this? Desire for something to be different is actually a grievance. The moment you desire something and you want something to be different, then you're actually in grievance mode, or in the Buddhist teaching calls it aversion. I don't want something to be this way, I want it to be this way. There's a desire for it to be something else, but there's an aversion towards what it is currently. And of course, that sets up resistance in your mind and takes you away from love, or pure formless awareness. And so ultimately, the change of mind necessary for awakening is demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. So it's always outside of you. Oh, well, the world needs to change. Someone else needs to change. Which, of course, keeps it outside and stops you from ever saying, well, I need to change my mind. Which is what the ego wants. You just maintain the same belief system, which is its belief system that keeps it obviously alive in your mind. Keeps it seeming to have an existence in your mind. Okay, so is that second paragraph? You want to give a little summary of that, John?
It's just talking about the ego's plan is to distract us by encouraging us to focus on grievances. And as soon as we do that, we are distracted and blaming others and doing everything apart from what is our real need, which is to go within and look within.
If someone else spoke or acted differently, I think this is a key point of this paragraph. Someone else did something differently, then I would be happy. And so the change of mind is always expected of someone else, which means you never change your own mind, which means you'll never awaken, because the belief in separation remains in your mind. Okay, happy with number 2?
Yep.
The role assigned to your own mind in this plan, then, is simply to determine what, other than itself, must change if you are to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success.
Okay, do you want to read the alternative and just unpack it line by line, maybe?
The role assigned to your own mind in this plan, then, is simply to determine what, other than itself, must change if you are to be happy.
Okay. That's a follow-on from the previous paragraph.
Yeah. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of awakening is acceptable, provided that it will not work.
Okay, so ultimately pointless and futile, but this is this is what the ego is saying. So look outside of you for something that's gonna seemingly work, but only accept it if actually it doesn't work. Which kind of explains why we're still stuck here so many lifetimes.
This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. So the ego will just keep on searching outside itself for something. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success.
So even though it's always failed, the ego's like, oh, but you haven't tried this. There's always another way. And it keeps you in this endless search for happiness and salvation externally. And Jesus says at some point in the course, all mental illness is some form of external searching. So we are mentally ill when we're searching outside of ourselves for what's within. This is where sickness originates, in this external search, which is ultimately very frustrating. So you're searching and you never find the answer. You're going to get very frustrated, aren't you?
Yeah.
And yet you have to realize that you're doing it to yourself. That who's deciding to search somewhere where the answer's not. You search where you're never going to find the answer, then of course you're never going to find it. So it's self-deception to continue searching in such a way. Is what he's saying here. Okay, want to give a little summary of that? Key points.
So he's saying that the ego is looking outside itself at what must change in order to be happy. And even though it's never worked in the past, It's never found anything outside itself that will make it happy. It continues to search fruitlessly. Another person.
There's always hope. You know, this is why hope in the world is so delusional. We hope that something else is going to work. So true hope is not in this world. The hope is that actually you can change your mind, and that there is this transcendent reality just waiting for you to invite it into your mind. That's where hope truly lies. But there's no hope in the world. There's just more of the same in a better disguise. You know, it's like, oh, well, that could work. And if you're honest with yourself and you look back in your life, you'll see just how often you've done this. How often have you gone in search of something external to try and, you know, fix your imagined problems and make you happy? Oh, well, that didn't work, but this will work. If I do this, if I change it. And you kind of got to smile at yourself, laugh, have a bit of a laugh and say, well, yes, I see how I've done this, but no more. You know, this teaching is so clear and explicit that how can I continue doing that when I understand what's really going on now? Okay, happy with number 3?
One question, when it talks about, just for number 3, Jono,
Yeah.
it says, according to this insane plan, any perceived source of awakening is acceptable, provided that it would not work. Is it acceptable to the ego? Okay.
Yeah. It's acceptable to the ego or the belief in separation, provided it will not work.
Yeah, that's what it wants.
So it's not going to accept anything that's actually going to work. It's going to reject it, but it'll accept everything that won't work, which is the ultimate kind of self-deception. It's like keep searching where you're never going to find the answer, and then going, well, you know, I'm not finding the answer, so I keep searching. And the deception in ourselves is simply to say, well, we're not actually looking in the right place. And on some level, maybe we realize we're not looking in the right place. But we keep doing it because we self-deceive and we're scared of, the ego is terrified of us actually finding the true answer. Okay, so I answer that question. That answers that question. So number 4. It's back to Kim.
Such is the belief in separation's plan for your awakening. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the belief in Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine. Seek but do not find. For what could be more surely guarantee what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation and to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not. Such is the belief in separation's plan for your awakening. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the belief in separation's basic doctrine. Seek but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find enlightenment than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? I think we just spoke about that in terms of to accept it as long as it doesn't work. And I'll just keep searching and searching because that's how the ego keeps itself alive and relevant as it thinks.
And it keeps the world going because there's always something else to search for.
Yeah.
You know, well, that didn't work, but there's something new. There's something else you haven't tried. And there's endless possibilities that the ego offers you for, you know, seeming salvation and happiness. But ultimately, it's not going to work. Seek but do not find is its fundamental doctrine. So keep searching, but search diligently for where you'll never, in a place where you'll never find what you're actually seeking for. Which is kind of diabolical, really, but you know, that's how it works. It's a diabolically frustrating thought system because it doesn't. It wants to hang on to itself, and so it can't know the truth. In order to do that, it has to make every effort to deny the truth, even while convincing you that you're searching for it. So everyone's engaged in searching for happiness and really not finding it in this world, convincing themselves they really are looking for happiness, when in fact they're not. They're just deceiving themselves, and the search is futile. They're actually just seeking and not finding it. On some level, we do know that. So he's just pointing it out very explicitly here. So we can really accept it and say, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. And once we accept this, then the game's over. Why would you carry on seeking fruitlessly when you realize there's no point? It's getting nowhere. So a very simple few paragraphs, simple concepts, simple ideas, but this can save you so much time. This can save you, lifetimes upon lifetimes of fruitless searching in the matrix to try and find the answer. And simply recognize that the answer's not there. You won't find it in the matrix. As remember that one line from the Matrix movie, Trinity says to Neo, so they're in the car and he's awakened and he's now come back into the matrix for the first time. He's on his way to see the Oracle. And he's looking outside and he goes, wow, I used to eat noodles there. They had good noodles. He says, and I realized that none of these experiences have already happened. And he says, what does that mean? He just says, it means the matrix cannot tell you who you are. So you'll never find the answer to, who am I? What is reality within an illusion? It can't tell you that. You have to look elsewhere. You have to look within. Okay, happy with number 4? Number 5, I think it's John again.
God's plan for salvation works simply because by following his direction, you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided and you will attempt to follow 2 plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. Or, love's plan for awakening works simply because by following its direction, you seek for awakening where it is. But if you are to succeed as love, pure formless awareness promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided and you will attempt to follow 2 plans for awakening that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair.
Okay. So anything stand out for you there?
Well, I think the main point about this is to focus on one plan, which is God's plan, and pay attention not to deviate back into the ego's plans. Be aware that we don't fall into that trap, and if we do, then correct ourselves as soon as possible.
So again, this is the non-dual teaching. It's one or the other here. You can't follow 2 plans at the same time. For happiness, for awakening, for your life. There's 2 plans for your life that are diametrically opposed in all ways. You just can't do that. So if you try it, then the result can only bring confusion because you've got 2 different voices telling you opposite things all the time. Misery and a deep sense of failure and despair. You cannot learn from 2 teachers that are teaching you opposite things. two guides telling you to go in opposite ways. Imagine if you were at a crossroads, one guide saying go this way, other one saying go the opposite way, and you're listening to both. Well, of course you're going to be confused, and you're going to get nowhere, because it'll take a couple of steps one way, then the other guide's going to cause you to turn around, go the other way, and really, you're just going to be walking around and around in circles, going nowhere. Just kind of what we're doing if we try to listen to two guides. So they're saying just choose one, choose the correct one, being the Holy Spirit, the awareness of oneness, and that's going to take you in the opposite direction from the ego, and you must let that go as a guide. You cannot listen to anything it tells you. Okay, happy with number 5?
Yeah, that's good.
Number 6.
How can you escape all this? Very simply, the idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this, because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. His is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. His is the only plan that must succeed.
Okay, and then the alternative.
Yeah, so how can you escape all this? Very simply, the idea for today is the answer. Only love's plan for awakening will work. There can be no real conflict about this, because there is no possible alternative to love's plan that will awaken you. This is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. This is the only plan that must succeed.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
Well, he's saying it's very simple. There's no conflict. God's plan is the only one that will bring us happiness.
Pretty clear and straightforward, saying just don't look anywhere else. So only love's plan for awakening will work. And only this. So there's no the two sides to this are, only this love's plan will work, and no other plans will work. Only this plan of love, pure formless awareness, only that's going to awaken you. Nothing else is going to work. And that must succeed because it's true. It's coming from the truth in your own mind. Okay, happy with number 6?
Yeah.
Number 7. Kim, I think it's your turn again.
Let us practice recognizing this certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. All things are possible to God. Salvation must be yours because of his plan, which cannot fail. Let us practice recognizing the certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. All things are possible to love, pure formless awareness. Enlightenment must be yours because of its plan, which cannot fail. So yeah, also clear. I mean, I think that they're saying that is the only way. Otherwise, there's a conflict with no resolution, and all is possible with God and love and pure formless awareness when it comes to salvation, and that cannot fail.
Yeah, it's a very reassuring saying. You may have had a lot of experience of failure and loss, sacrifice, and so on in the past, but it's because you were looking where the answer wasn't. So if you look where it is, then you cannot fail to find it. It's there, and you will find it as others have found it. And this is what's going to save you. This is what's going to truly make you happy for all eternity. So a very encouraging message, I think. Just trying to encourage us, motivate us to carry on and just to look in the only place we can find it, which is deep in our own mind. Not be swayed by the ego's continuous, the ego is always trying to pull you out of that into the world, isn't it? Get you to focus your perception on the world and say, well, look there for reality. Judge that as real, and let that be the arbiter of your thoughts and emotions. This is a disaster if you do that. It's never going to work to bring you peace and happiness at all. Which is why the world is unhappy fundamentally, because most people are identified with the world, and it's really not designed to bring peace and happiness. It's designed to bring the opposite. Okay, happy with number 7? Let's read number 8, then we'll go into some practice.
Begin the 2 longer practice periods for today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. God's plan for your salvation will work and other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first. And in the first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, but God's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy. Or begin the 2 longer practice periods today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. Love's plan for your awakening will work, and other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first. And in the first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, but love's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy.
Okay, thoughts on that?
Well, it's saying only God's plan for salvation will work, and don't get worried about the ego's plans not working, because that's never going to be the case. Just focus on our full release being within following God's plan.
Release from your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. I got a laugh. It's a bit of humor there as well. So we've been trying to do this for a very long time. The ego's got a plan for awakening because we're not happy here. So okay, the ego's all right. Well, you're not happy. I'll give you a plan. But this plan is insane, and these proposals are mad to free yourself. So we think by doing something external, it's actually going to work, and they've led to depression and anger. But love's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy. So take Marisa Peer's clients, good example. People went on the ego's way to try and find happiness and ultimately salvation in their own minds, and then they find themselves very depressed. Very often very depressed, angry, frustrated, addicted to substances, all kinds of dysfunction going on in their lives, because they've departed from the truth. And when they come back to just the simple truth that I am enough, what Marisa Peer directs them to to believe, then that's love's plan. You know, I'm enough as I am. I am that I am. I was created in love and by love, and I acknowledge that, and I'm enough and okay as I am. I don't need to try and prove myself through, you know, all these external means. So the person then starts going within, and this leads them to release and joy. And as a result, he's, you know, had amazing results from people who were very much invested in the ego's way, and just gave them another way to find release and joy. So key point there is, you know, seek only love's plan is going to work, and no other plans will work. So you can't say, well, love's plan will work and another plan will work. It's exclusive. It's an exclusive commitment he's asking us for, isn't it? Love's plan for your awakening will work and other plans will not. Okay. And then he goes into some practice, asking these questions. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? So the idea is to ask for guidance, ask this presence for guidance in these very practical things. Yeah, you're going to have to do things in this life, go places, see people, and speak to people. So what would you have me say, and to whom? Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? So it's leading us to a point of ultimate surrender, where we just really trust our entire lives to this amazing presence. It's inside all of us. Okay, so shall we do a meditation now, or do you want to go into? Well, first of all, any questions on the lesson?
No, I think it's a good lesson, and it's very clear. My own vote would be to go to the text, mainly because if we do a meditation now, I think I'm going to
fall asleep. Okay. So, Kim, you happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Grandeur versus Grandiosity, this one's called. Section 8, Chapter 9, if you want to follow on in your book. And it's not too bad, 11 paragraphs, but they're kind of medium size. Some shortish, some medium. So, let me start another recording. Anyone need a comfort break? You okay to carry on?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take 2 minutes and get some.
Okay, get some water.
No. All right. And I'm back. Let's recording's going again. Okay. So, Grandeur versus Grandiosity, this one's called. Okay, so do you want to start? I'm not sure whose turn. I think was it Sue's turn, but she's not there. So, John, do you want to kick it off with?
Yeah. Grandeur versus grandiosity. Grandeur is of God, pure formless awareness, and only of Him. Therefore, it is in you. Whenever you become aware of it, however dimly, you abandon the ego automatically, because in the presence of the grandeur of God, pure formless awareness, the meaninglessness of the ego becomes perfectly apparent. When this occurs, even though it does not understand it, the ego believes that its enemy has struck and attempts to offer gifts to induce you to return to its protection. Self-inflation is the only offering it can make. The grandiosity of the ego is its alternative to the grandeur of God. Which will you choose? So, nice questioning opening. Do you want grandeur or do you want grandiosity? Grandeur, which is part of love and pure formless awareness, is therefore part of us because that is within us. Interesting that he says the ego is automatically afraid, however dimly aware we are of grandeur.
Grandeur of the state of pure formless awareness. So it's really pointing us to these deeper states of love and peace and joy, and that's the grandeur. Just feeling those higher feelings, those higher states. And the ego is terrified of this, and so even though it does not understand it, the ego believes that its enemy has struck, attempts to offer gifts to induce you to return to its protection. And self-inflation is the only offering it can make. So self-inflation is this grandiosity. It's like puffing up the little self and making it seem something bigger, something more real. That's really what grandiosity is, self-inflation, which implies arrogance. If you recall in our levels of consciousness, let me go there. Where are we? In the levels of consciousness diagram, arrogance just below the level of courage, arrogance or pride just below the level of courage. Where are we? Yeah, it'll be down here somewhere. Integral model, map of consciousness, what I want. Great. No, we don't want that. It's just gone out of. Let's try again. I'll scroll down to it. So if you have a look at this, let's make it bigger. Less level 175 is pride. So this would correspond to grandiosity, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Indifferent, God view is God is indifferent. Life views, it's demanding. Pride, scorn, and inflation. Interesting. Even uses the same word. Self-inflation is the process. Which is exactly what Jesus has used here. That and this is typically what we think of as ego. You know, people say, "Oh, he's got a big ego." Let's say they're talking about Donald Trump. Is a good example of this. The enormous ego, self-inflation. This is typically what we think of as a big ego. This kind of self-inflated grandiosity. But as you go on to say, that actually there's littleness and grandiosity are really just on the same level. You actually have to have some belief in littleness in order to attempt grandiosity, to counteract it. Which is what he goes on to teach us in paragraph 2. So, Sue, you want to read paragraph 2?
Is always a cover for despair. It is without hope because it is not real. It is an attempt to counteract your littleness based on the belief that the littleness is real. Without this belief, grandiosity is meaningless, and you could not possibly want it. The essence of grandiosity is competitiveness, because it always involves attack. It is a delusional attempt to outdo, but not to undo. We said before that the ego vacillates between suspiciousness and viciousness. It remains suspicious as long as you despair of yourself. It shifts to viciousness when you decide not to tolerate self-abasement and seek relief. Then it offers you the illusion of attack as a solution.
Okay, anything stand out for you there?
Well, I get the first bit, that grandiosity counteracts your littleness. Because you see this when people feel they're inferior, they kind of puff themselves up to try and appear bigger than they are.
Yeah. Because why else would you need to do that?
Yeah.
Unless on some level you felt unworthy.
But to believe that you're little is arrogance, because it's not actually the truth of who you are, who you were created to be.
So without this belief, so without the unworthiness that the ego believes in, grandiosity is meaningless.
Yeah.
Could not possibly want it.
So the ego vacillates between suspiciousness and viciousness. It remains.
It's over the competitiveness bit. Do you understand that? The essence of grandiosity is competitiveness.
Well, yeah, because I think that's following on from the first couple of sentences. So you want to make yourself look bigger compared to other people.
Yeah. So it's always comparative, which means it's competitive.
Yeah.
So the essence of the grandiose kind of self-inflated person is they have to be better than someone else, don't they?
Yeah.
So there's a competitiveness there, and it's actually attacking the other person. So in order to puff myself up, I have to put other people down. So it involves attack. I'm attacking others, and in truth, it always involves attack because I'm attacking myself. I'm attacking my own true self in this process, even though I don't realize it. There's a delusional attempt to outdo your brothers, but not to undo the ego. Okay, happy with that? The idea of competitiveness, the idea of attack. It's attacking others, but it's also attacking your own self-concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because by believing in grandiosity, you're actually believing in littleness. And you're attacking the true self that's beyond littleness or grandiosity in your mind as you do that. Okay, delusional attempt to outdo but not to undo. So it's not really about undoing the ego at all. It's delusional. And then number 7 to number 10.
We said before that the ego vacillates between suspiciousness and viciousness. It remains suspicious as long as you despair of yourself.
Yeah, does it make sense?
I'm not really sure what it's saying.
Okay. So I'm not sure why he used it. Is suspiciousness actually a word? Isn't it suspicion? Yeah. I kind of wondered about that before. So look, suspiciousness. It might be a word. Probably is, but it's quite a long way of saying suspicion. Suspiciousness. So look. Is that happening? Okay. I don't know why it's not happening. Dictionary. Okay. For some reason it doesn't seem to want to do that. So try it there. Suspiciousness. Quality of distrust or disbelief. Suspiciousness. Okay. So it is actually a suspiciousness versus suspicion. Because I would have thought using suspicion would be better versus suspicion. Being suspicious is usually based on something such as a hunch, where it's typically used in situations in which there is some doubt. Same thing is implied by the verb. Okay. Anyway, it is a word. I thought it would have been better to use suspicion, but suspiciousness it is. So ego vacillates between suspiciousness and viciousness. It remains suspicious as long as you despair of yourself. I'm not sure what that means. Any ideas, anyone? What is that? Remain suspicious as long as you despair of yourself.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I've not really kind of seen that before, that it remains suspicious as long as you despair. I'm just kind of trying to get an angle on that. Okay, if I'm in a state of desperation, then I'm going to be suspicious of others. Whereas, and then it says, when you get fed up with self-debasement, you move to viciousness, which kind of I do have a feel for.
Not to tolerate self-abasement and seek relief. Then it offers you the illusion of attack as a solution. So, good example of this, actually, because I remember Iona, were you there in the session where she told the story of where she had that encounter with the two guys at the tip.
I missed the beginning of that one. Yeah.
So in a sense, she was going, I'm not going to tolerate self-abasement anymore, because in the past she would have just gone, oh, okay, well then, I'll just be small. And and but it shifted her into the illusion of attack as a solution, which was a good example of that, which she recognized. Said, yeah, I was quite ready to have it on with the guys and take them on physically if necessary. So this is the illusion of attack as a solution, from suspicion, as long as you despair of yourself and go, okay, well, I suppose this is like the victim, oh, poor me, woe is me, oh, poor me. It's still, the ego remains suspicious of everyone and everything in that state. Oh, well, no, I'm going to be hurt. I can't trust anyone, so I'm very suspicious of everyone's motives because I feel like everyone's out to get me and out to hurt me. That's, I think, what he's referring to. As long as you despair of yourself. But when you go, okay, right, enough of this already, and you shift up into this level of pride, from the levels of consciousness, David Hawkins' scale, you shift up into pride from, say, a lower state of fear. So fear would be the victim, I'm suspicious of everyone, and now you shift into anger and pride. That's seemingly a shift up the scale because it's more energy available, 150 or 175 versus 100, but you're still very much in the ego's framework. And then it offers you the illusion of attack on someone else as a solution. So there's anger. So you shifted from 100 fear to anger 150, but you're still in the ego, very much so. And this is now the illusion that this is some kind of solution. That if you attack, and you're attacking through the grandiosity, that you'll feel better about yourself. And this will give you a sense of self-esteem, and you will now, in ego terms, be a better self, a bigger self. And so a lot of people get angry easily. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to seek relief in the anger and attack. Or, if I'm this grandiose self and I'm attacking everyone else, then it makes me feel kind of temporarily better about myself. It's a better state. The ego is telling you this is a better state than being the victim. We saw that yesterday in the movie. So the Jews were seemingly the oppressed ones. So they would be in the victim state, and then the Romans identified themselves as grandeur, the grandiosity of the ego. Well, we somehow better, superior, and we believe in our superior status, and of course they must keep everyone underneath them. So it offers an illusion of attack, some kind of solution to maintain their grandiose status. And all the emperors coming. There was a lot of grandiosity actually in that movie, which it showed you. But underlying that, they're caught up in the same system. They're just as enslaved as the people who believe they're victims, because they're not happy. You saw Pilate and Clavius in the first part of the movie. Just really not happy people at all, and they were slaves to someone else in the system. So Clavius is a slave to Pilate. Pilate is a slave to the emperor. And the emperor's probably, got his own enslavement, even though he's the top of the pile. There would no doubt be forces that in Rome that he felt, were trying to control him and oppress him. So that's how it goes. That's the ego's thought system. No one's really free. And then Jesus comes along and offers total freedom from all of it. It's just a totally different thought system, where the victim and the grandiosity just don't exist anymore. And he said to Clavius, there are no enemies here. You're welcome, Clavius. There are no enemies here. Because there's a recognition that we all one. Okay, so I'm going to give a little summary of that too, and then we'll move on to number 3.
Okay, so the ego uses grandiosity to puff itself up when it's when it thinks it's being little, and compares itself with others. Which involves attack, because which is a delusional attempt to outdo others, but not to undo the ego.
Remember, the ego is the belief in separation, so that's all that's being promoted here. Belief in separation strengthened by grandiosity, and it's strengthened by littleness, because it makes you separate from other people, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then the vacillation between suspicion, suspiciousness, and viciousness.
So the ego vacillates between suspiciousness and viciousness. It is suspicious when it's in despair, suspicious that it's going to be put down, or people are going to do things against it.
Well, it's the two sides of the attack equation. It's like when you're suspicious, you're fearful, and you're fearful of being attacked. Someone's going to attack me, hurt me. This is the victim, isn't it? Victim's always suspicious of everyone's motives. Oh, you're going to come and victimize me. And then the switch, when you decide not to tolerate self-abasement and seek relief, then it switches you into attack. Now you're going to attack others. So you're going to be, instead of the victim, you're going to be the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And we see in history, this happens all the time. The victims shift to perpetrators, perpetrators shift to victims. Roles get changed, but it's the same essential equation of attack on another. Whether you're the victim or the perpetrator doesn't actually matter to the ego. So that's kind of what he's saying here. Suspicion is being the victim on the receiving end of attack, and grandiosity is then the person who gives the attack. But it's just attack. And the attack is the solution then to your apparent self-abasement, when in fact it's not at all. Okay, happy with number 2?
Yeah.
Moving on to number 3 then. Just translate, the ego, he uses ego quite a lot in this one. So ego is the belief in separation as a translation, which can be quite helpful in understanding it.
Okay. The belief in separation does not understand the difference between grandeur and grandiosity, because it sees no difference between miracle impulses and ego alien beliefs of its own. I told you that the belief in separation is aware of threat to its existence, but makes no distinctions between these two different kinds of threat. Its profound sense of vulnerability renders it incapable of judgment, except in terms of attack. When the belief in separation experiences threat, its only decision is whether to attack now or to withdraw to attack later. If you accept that if it's offer of grandiosity, it will attack immediately. If you do not, it will wait.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Does not understand the difference between grandeur and grandiosity, because it sees no difference between miracle impulses and ego alien beliefs of its own.
I don't think I've seen the word miracle impulses before, actually.
Really? I think he's used it before.
Yeah, I'm sure he has, but I haven't kind of logged it, I suppose. I mean, I'm taking it to mean right-minded thoughts.
Yeah, miracle impulses, miracles of correction. So the impulse to correct, there's something in us that wants to do it differently.
Yeah.
Seeks salvation where it really lies. And ego alien beliefs of its own. So that's kind of interesting because it's kind of conflicted then. Ego alien beliefs of its own. Okay, so it's a belief in separation, but these ego alien beliefs are things that contradict itself. It means it's very confused.
Yeah.
It makes no distinction between these two different kinds of threat. Okay, so whether it's coming from miracle impulses or from itself, it doesn't know. Strong sense of vulnerability or is incapable of judgment except in terms of attack. Right? So it feels continuously vulnerable, and its only judgment then is, am I going to be attacked now? When it experiences threat, its only decision is whether to attack now or to withdraw to attack later. When you accept its offer of grandiosity, it will attack immediately. If you do not, it will wait. Well, so again, that was kind of shown last night in the movie. Offer of grandiosity will attack immediately. So the grandiosity of the ego playing out in the Romans was like, right, there's a threat, apparent threat by the Messiah to the stability, the order that we must maintain. So we're going to attack immediately. So Pilate sends them out on the attack, says, right, do whatever it takes, arrest anyone, kill anyone, just go and find a body. If you don't accept the offer of grandiosity, it will wait. So you kind of got the sense of the simmering. The Jews in that situation were not happy. So they didn't attack immediately. They felt like the victims, but it will wait. There was the idea that unrest was always possible because attack was just simmering under the surface, ready to explode into unrest, which is what the Romans were terrified of. That it would become overt. So as long as they could keep it kind of simmering, and they underneath there was an illusion of control, wasn't there? Now the emperor wants order, illusion that we're in control here, when actually they're not really at all. In personal relationships, if you accept the offer of grandiosity, oh well, I'm self-inflated, I'm better than the other person, then it attacks immediately and will try to put that person down. Often, not necessarily with a physical attack, that can happen, but often with a verbal attack. Oh well, I'll just put that person in their place. So I'll say something that's going to cut them down to size. So that's the ego. That's what the ego will do. If you don't and you believe you're the victim, then it will wait. But it's going to harbor the grievance and hold on to the resentment to attack at a future time. Because every victim believes in attack. So it's not hard for a victim to become a perpetrator, which happens frequently. Okay, so any questions on that? Any thoughts?
I think it's good.
Kim, do you want to give a little summary of that and we'll move on?
I think I'll just summarize it with the last. It does not understand the difference between the grandeur and grandiosity, and when it experiences threat, I think this from either, it either will attack now or attack later, but it will attack.
Yeah, so whether you're in the littleness or the grandiosity, whether you believe you're the victim or the conqueror, you're still rooted in the idea of attack. We saw that very clearly in the movie yesterday. It was a thought system based on attack, and there wasn't any peace there. The Romans had found no peace of mind at all. Clavius only found peace of mind when he started to accept the truth, that there are no enemies. There are no enemies, and lay down your sword. Started listening to the teachings of Jesus. Then he started finding some peace from his travails. But within the thought system of attack, it wasn't going to happen ever. Pilate even says to him at one point, he says, "So what's your ambition?" He says, "Well, I want to go to Rome, have a political career, accumulate wealth and power, so that I can buy a house in the country and have peace." Pilate said, "Wow, all of that for peace? One wonders if there's not another way." And of course, there is another way, which is shown to him in the movie. Other ways, Jesus' teachings, and just accepting them and dropping that whole ego story of grandiosity and attack, and accepting the presence of love. Okay, happy with number 3?
Yep.
Moving on to number 4. Ego is immobilized in the presence of God's grandeur, because his grandeur, so the ego, the belief in separation, is immobilized in the presence of love's grandeur, because its grandeur establishes your freedom. Even the faintest hint of your reality literally drives the ego, the sense of separation, from your mind, because you will give up all investment in it. Grandeur is totally without illusions. And because it is real, it is compellingly convincing. Yet the conviction of reality will not remain with you unless you do not allow the ego sense of separation to attack it. The ego sense of separation will make every effort to recover and mobilize its energies against your release. It will tell you that you are insane and argue that grandeur cannot be a real part of you because of the littleness in which it believes. Yet your grandeur is not delusional because you did not make it. You made grandiosity and are afraid of it because it is a form of attack. But your grandeur is with God, who created it out of his love.
Okay. So any thoughts on that?
Yes, I just when I was reading that bit about number 3, grandeur is totally without illusions because it is real. Because it is real, it is compellingly convincing. It's just that moment when Clavius enters the room with Jesus and his disciples.
Compellingly convincing. It's like, whoa, okay, he's just seen something that absolutely rocks his belief system. It's so compelling, he cannot deny it anymore. That the conviction of reality will not remain with you unless you do not allow the ego to attack it, belief in separation. So he's saying you must be vigilant. It's need for vigilance. So you can have this glimpse of grandeur, but then you must be vigilant of the ego. And you saw his vacillation, so he has that mind-blowing experience, but he's still not quite convinced. So he follows the disciples at a distance, and he's still not, 100% sure. He's just kind of tracking them, going, okay, I want to follow, I'm not part of them. And then Peter comes and gives him the water, and he slices it because he's on his guard, you see. So we have to be vigilant for the ego coming back to attack it and say, no, this isn't true. And actually, grandiosity is better. And at the end, he relinquishes all of that, doesn't he? Clavis he lets go of all of the armor, the body armor, and the cloak, and all this, and the ring. The ring was a symbol of the position of power, and he relinquishes that. He says, I'm dropping this. He lets go of the grandiosity to accept the truth. Anything else?
Well, I think this paragraph is about grandeur is of spirit, and when it's within us, when we are connected to it, it's not self-inflation. It's because we didn't make it. It's without illusion, and it's pure and strong and.
It's a feeling, really. Grandeur, it's love, it's peace, it's joy. It's a feeling of being infinite, being eternal, being timeless, being invulnerable. It has nothing to do with whatever's happening on the level of form. So all of the grandiosity of Rome, all of that pomp and ceremony, and they had the armies, and they have the emperor, and and they have the luxuries, they have the baths and the wine, women, and song. None of that could match the grandeur of Jesus in his simplicity of the simple truth that he stood for. And so Clavius found himself drawn to that and saying, well, actually I don't want this. I'm wanting to let the grandiosity go, because that was what the ego's script for him was. Okay, well, you're gonna become more self-inflated. You're gonna go from being a military tribune to being a prefect, because that was kind of the thing, and then eventually get back to Rome, and then you're in the Senate, and it's grandiose, isn't it? It's like all about the role and the level of form and your position and your wealth and your status and your power. So the path that the ego had laid out from his grandiosity to eventually get to peace. And clearly that wasn't going to work. He's got his whole life trying to find peace and not find it. Jesus was just a very direct path, showing him, like, actually you can just drop it all. You can let go of literally drop your sword, which is representative of this thought system of attack. Drop it. Drop your identity and follow me. Just become a follower of the truth, rather than following the directions of this egoic thought system that's controlling you. So good movie in this context, I'd say. So a lot of this teaching came into it. Anything else? Want to give a quick summary of that, John?
Well, grandeur is pure and whole and of spirit. It is not self-inflation in any way, and it's when we are in contact with it, the ego fades into the background.
But he's making the point, the ego is going to make every effort to recover, mobilize its energies against your release. Tell you that you're insane, while your grandeur cannot be a real part of you because of the littleness in which it believes. So, this is what happens. You're going on this path, you start really waking up to who you are, then it's going to fight back. And that's what you need to be vigilant against. You're afraid of your grandiosity because it's a form of attack. So we're actually afraid of this grandiose self that we've made because we feel like it's actually we're attacking ourselves, truth be told. Grandiosity and attack go hand in hand. So we're actually fearful underneath the grandiosity. And you saw that so clearly with the Romans. Look at all the fear they had. So, oh my God, this Jewish, quite extraordinary, really, because this one teacher, this one Jewish guy, just a guy with a few followers, they're terrified of, and they're running around in this fear, trying to counteract it. So, although they're seemingly in charge, they're actually in a lot of fear, because actually they fear the grandeur of what Jesus stands for. That was the truth of them. It was something that they couldn't quite fathom. Grandeur is of love, who created out of his love. Okay, happy with number 4?
Yeah.
Number 5, you?
From your grandeur, you can only bless, because your grandeur is your abundance. By blessing, you hold it in your mind, protecting it from illusions and keeping yourself in the mind of God. Remember always that you cannot be anywhere except in the mind of God.
You want to translate that?
Yeah. Remember always that you cannot be anywhere except in the mind of pure formless awareness. When you forget this, you will despair and you will attack.
And we translate sometimes mind as awareness. So you cannot be anywhere except in the awareness of pure formless awareness. It's another way of translating that. So you cannot be anywhere except in that awareness. That awareness is the only true state, and when you forget this, you will despair and you will attack. So despair is the littleness, believing in the littleness, and attack is believing in the grandiosity. Both of which move you away from the mind of God, being this pure formless awareness, state of pure formless awareness. Okay, you want to give a little summary of that?
When you're in the grandeur of, which comes from the knowledge that you're in the awareness of pure formless awareness, you can only bless. When you forget about it, that's when you despair and you will attack.
Grandeur is your abundance. So in the New Age teaching, people continuously talk about abundance, and they typically mean abundance on the experience on the material level. Abundance of money, possessions, relationships, health, usually related to material things. And your grandeur is your true abundance. So that feeling of love, peace, and joy, that's your true abundance. And nothing else is abundance at all. That reflects in more stuff coming your way. Well, so be it. But your true abundance is this internal state he's calling grandeur, which is another term for a state of grace. He's used grace. It's a state of love. It's peace. It's joy. It's all of that in this one word of grandeur. So this is the true abundance that we need to be rooted in, and then letting from that state of mind, whatever will happen will happen. If we're guided to think and speak and act in certain ways, then that grandeur is potentially going to create some miracles in our lives, and that can show up as what other people might see as abundance on the level of form, but the true abundance is within us. And when he talks about the blessing, A blessing, you hold it in your mind, which is nice. So yeah, you have this abundance, and then you can only bless. You can only bless, can't you?
Mm.
Bless and heal others. And so that's now an extension of the abundance that you feel like. By blessing, as you give it, you hold it in your mind. So he's teaching us the same message over and over and over again, pretty much every section recently. And as you give it, you receive it. Protecting it from illusions, keeping yourself in the awareness of this pure formless awareness. Okay? So you feel it, you extend it in your blessing, and as you give it, you feel even more certain, and confirms it in your mind. And so you keep it. As you give it, you receive it. And this confirms that you are in this awareness, in the mind of God, or the awareness of love, or the awareness of pure formless awareness. That awareness is yours. And only when you forget this will you despair and attack. That's the price of forgetting. Despair and attack. Wow. So if we really remember this, then why would you want despair and attack when you can have grandeur and abundance and blessings and bless others? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, happy with number 5?
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, I think it's Kim again.
The ego depends solely on your willingness to tolerate it. If you are willing to look,
remember, and just do the translation as we go. So the ego is a belief in separation.
Belief in separation depends solely on your willingness to tolerate. If you are willing to look upon your grandeur, you cannot despair, and therefore you cannot want the ego. Grandeur is God's answer to the ego, because it is true.
Yeah.
Grandeur is love's answer to the belief in separation, because it is true. Littleness and grandeur cannot coexist, nor is it possible for them to alternate. Littleness and grandiosity can and must alternate, since both are untrue and therefore on the same level. Being the level of shift, it is experienced as shifting, and extremes are its essential characteristic.
Okay. So any thoughts on that?
So I think it's saying that if you cannot despair if you're looking upon grandeur, so that's not looking upon the ego, and that's God's answer to the ego, or belief in separation. If you're going to grandiosity or littleness, which they say can and must alternate on the same level, it's extreme. It's not true. So the answer is going to grandeur.
And again, this is the non-dual teaching coming through. Littleness and grandeur cannot coexist. So it's one or the other in your mind. You can't be little and a victim of the world and in this state of grandeur, of knowing that you are eternal love and everything that goes with that. They don't coexist. You must choose, and you can't alternate between them. Whereas littleness and grandiosity can and must alternate, since both are untrue. So when you look at human history, it's really the alternation, the history of the alternation between littleness and grandiosity. It's another way of framing the entire human history, isn't it? So we have really human history is characterized by victims and perpetrators. So throughout history, it's been conquerors and the conquered, the victims and the perpetrators, and this shifts all the time. So one country or nation can be a victim, and then a few years later they can become the perpetrator, and they shift into conquering someone else. Think of the Jews. They they're victims for so long, and then then they get their own state of Israel, and then they become the perpetrators, and they start victimizing others, Palestinians, etc. And that's how it goes. The littleness and the grandiosity can and must alternate. And if you believe in littleness, it's very easy for you to shift to grandiosity, because it's on the same level, and it's just the opposite polarity of littleness. But both are untrue. In the level of shift, experience is shifting. Extremes are its essential characteristic. Well, look at human history. I mean, it's an extreme. So these extreme situations of extreme victimization, extreme poverty, slavery, extreme violence. This is the characteristic of it. Shifting from littleness to grandiosity and back. And the little person needs a grandiose person to tell them that they're little, don't they? That's how it works. So the victim and the victimizer are bound up in the same egoic story, and they don't see through the roles typically. And that's what Jesus did, so beautifully. Just cut through all of that. He was a transcendent figure. Just cut through all of that littleness, grandiosity, and rose above it, transcended it, and said, "This is all nonsense. Actually, only grandeur is true." And I'm not going to try and play into the littleness and the grandiosity story. So if you remember Barabbas and some of these other rebels, the beginning of the story, he kills Barabbas, if you recall, the first 10 minutes. And Barabbas is saying, well, just you wait. When the Messiah comes, he's going to put you in your place. He's going to conquer Rome. So that's, I'm little now, but the Messiah is going to make us into something big and grandiose on the level of form. It's going to conquer Rome. This was the belief. So it's a belief in grandiosity, which simply wasn't true. And Jesus's grandeur just transcended all of that. So being the level of shift that's experienced as shifting, and extremes are its essential characteristic. And that's why we have an extreme. That's why history is extreme. It's really not a nice story, human history, because of this being characterized by littleness and grandiosity, both of which are not true. Okay, so make sense? Any comments on that? Ideas? Can you see that very clearly in the movie? So this is shown in the movie really well. This littleness, grandiosity, alternation between the two, and then the grandeur characterized by the contrast with the grandeur of Jesus and what he stood for. That just transcended that level. Okay, happy with number 6? So number 7, it's John.
Truth and littleness are denials of each other, because grandeur is truth. Truth does not vacillate. It is always true. When grandeur slips away from you, you have replaced it with something you have made. Perhaps it is the belief in littleness. Perhaps it is the belief in grandiosity. Yet it must be insane, because it is not true. Your grandeur will never deceive you, but your illusions always will. Illusions are deceptions. You cannot triumph, but you are exalted. And in your exalted state, you seek others like you and rejoice with them.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
Interesting, the word exalted. Altered, I guess what it means, you cannot triumph, but you are exalted. In your exalted state, you seek others like you. I guess exalted means lifted, enhanced.
Let's have a look. Always useful to go to a definition.
I mean, it's used in the Bible a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, exalted state, exalted meaning of a person, their rank or status at a high or powerful level. And then it means in a state of extreme happiness. I felt exalted and newly alive. Interesting. So you can interpret exalted in two ways. At a high or powerful level, that's egoic.
Yeah.
So the emperor was in an exalted state.
Yeah.
In the ego's world, because he's at the top of the tree. But Jesus was in the state of extreme happiness. He was exalted, and so were the disciples.
Yes. Yes.
So this is what he's saying. It's this
newly alive.
Yeah, exactly. Literally reborn. Felt exalted and newly alive. That's an example of state. So I think you saw that very clearly in the movie. Jesus is just so gentle and happy. So he's just been crucified, but there's no trauma, there's no drama. He's just really very happy, very gentle. And the man who's crucified him, so he says, "Come in here, come, Clavius, welcome. They're no enemies." I think that was partly what also blew Clavius's mind. It's like, whoa, not only is the guy alive, but there's no grievance. I've been part of I'm the so-called enemy who's crucified him, and he knows me because Jesus was alive when he saw him, and yet he's there's no grievance at all. There's no resentment. He's just like, welcome, Clavis. There's no enemies, and he's just like, whoa, this is just blowing my mind, blowing his ego mind out of its bracket, and just recalibrating him, because he's seeing the truth, and this eternal truth that does not vacillate. So you want to give a little summary of number 7?
Well, truth and littleness cannot exist in the face of grandeur. But when grandeur slips away, we have replaced it with something that is little and illusory, or maybe a belief in some sort of grandiosity. But all of it is not true. And grandeur will never deceive us. So it will always it isn't passing, permanent. Illusions are deceptions, and grandeur exalts us, and through that we exalt others.
You cannot triumph. So again, like related to yesterday's movie, you cannot triumph. So this wasn't really about triumphing over the ego's thought system and triumphing over the Romans and overthrowing the Roman power on the level of form. It wasn't what it was about. It was about the exalted state of being in connection with your source, with God, with love, and just living that way. So you cannot triumph. And remember, Bartholomew says to Clavis, he says, it's not about, he says, we have no interest in worldly things. He says, the kingdom, Jesus says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and give unto God what is God's. So no interest in taking power or control on a worldly level. You cannot triumph. That would be the ego's triumph on this level, but you are exalted. So you live in this exalted state, which is the true triumph. That's the triumph of the spirit over the ego in your mind. And then you seek others like you and you rejoice with them. Now, and that does seem to happen. Like people, as you go on a spiritual path, you feel like you want to share it. And so then we feel the need to connect with others and share this. Seek others like you and rejoice with them. To share this, newfound awakening of the truth of oneness. It doesn't feel right to keep it all to yourself. You want to share it with others, and then our joy is enhanced. Rejoice with them. Just lots of people in the same state. Have you been in groups, workshops, retreats, this kind of thing? It really does. It's amazing what happens. You can feel that the power of a collective, a group of people getting into the same state of mind. Okay, happy with number 7?
Yep.
Number 8.
It is easy to distinguish grandeur from grandiosity because love is returned and pride is not. Pride will not produce miracles and will therefore deprive you of the true witnesses to your reality. Truth is not obscure nor hidden, but its obviousness to you lies in the joy you bring to its witnesses who show it to you. They attest to your grandeur, but they cannot attest to pride because pride is not shared. Pure Formless Awareness or love wants you to behold what it created because it is its joy. So it's easy to distinguish grandeur from grandiosity. Because in grandeur, you're returning love, and in grandiosity, you're showing only your pride.
Well, pride is not returned. So if you give love, then it's returned, and you see that the more you give it, the more you receive it. Whereas pride, that doesn't work the same way. So the more proud you are, let's take Pilate had quite a lot of pride. The more pride you have, pride doesn't get returned. Pride is your own delusion, your own separated state. No one returns pride to you, because in order to maintain your pride, you have to believe that you're better than others.
Yeah.
You might reinforce that pride by believing in your delusion and saying, yes, well you are in charge, you are better than me, but it's not going to return itself to you. That's what he's saying. Whereas love at these higher states, they return. The more you extend it out, the more it returns to you, which is the law of giving and receiving. So the more grandeur you feel, love, joy, peace, this is the grandeur he's talking about. Levels sort of 500 and above. This is grandeur, love, joy, peace, and ultimately enlightenment, which is ineffable, pure consciousness, he calls it. Just a self-awareness that's complete and whole and perfect. So this is the grandeur that's being pointed to. These states of mind are the grandeur. And it's way beyond pride. And as you extend these, so like Jesus is rooted in his peace and his joy and his love, and then he extends it and he receives it back. You saw how loving the disciples were towards him, because he's extended it, and now he gets it back. Whereas in the Romans relationships, there was none of that. It was very separative, wasn't it? It's like there was no love, no true connection. It was like, you will do this or else. Yeah, so anything else in stand out for you there? Pride will not produce miracles. Deprive you of the true witnesses. So this idea of the witnesses is important. See, the miracles are the witnesses to your reality. So as you see the extensions of love, the effects, then it's confirmed in your mind. You saw that with the disciples. You know, Jesus taught by example. So by his example of this loving presence and the miracles he did from that loving presence, they saw the witnesses and then they believed. Claver says, why do you follow him? He says, well, that's why. Because we've just seen the demonstration so clearly of this power of love. Whereas pride will deprive you of these kinds of witnesses. There are no miracles in pride. Okay, anything else about that paragraph? Truth is not obscure nor hidden, but obviousness. Obviousness to you lies in the joy you bring to its witnesses who show it to you. Okay, so what's he saying there?
When you're living in your truth, you're extending love and joy, and the witnesses reflect it back to you.
The joy you bring to its witnesses, you show it to you. So you bring joy to the witnesses who show it to you. So that would be people in the world. You view in the truth and they show it to you, and you bring your joy to them. And you appreciate, maybe he's talking about gratitude here as well. You're grateful for these witnesses that reflect back your love and your joy to you. So they attest to your grandeur, but they cannot attest to pride because pride isn't shared. Yeah, so you think about the witnesses to Jesus. His disciples were a witness to him. They attested to his grandeur because they were in a state of joy and happiness and faith. And I think this is also what impressed Clavis. It's like these men have real faith. There's something real and tangible which is completely missing in my thought system. And of course, pride cannot do this. So just synchronistic. We're reading this after the night after the movie. It's amazing, really.
Yeah.
It's a perfect section to illustrate a lot of those points you saw. And then love or pure formless awareness wants you to behold what it created because it is its joy. So its nature is to extend into the mind. Your mind is part of it. Wants you to behold what it created, because when you behold that is its joy. So it experiences joy through you. That's the idea. Its awareness is your awareness. As you experience joy, it experiences joy, and that's the will of God, is that we all experience love and peace and joy, and we're in this state of grandeur eternally. That's how He created or extended us. That's the truth, and so it's to return to that state is our only function. Okay, happy with number 8? Want to add anything else there, Sue? I'm making your life too easy tonight, because I'm kind of just going on a roll and talking about it.
I think we're all feeling very sleepy tonight.
Oh yes. Okay.
It's after 11, Jono. Let's.
Okay, we're nearly there. 3 more paragraphs. So do you want to read number 9?
Yeah. Can your grandeur be arrogant when God Himself witnesses to it? And what can be real that has no witness? witnesses, what good can come of it? And if no good can come of it, the Holy Spirit cannot use it.
You want to translate as you go, just as a time?
Okay, I'll start again. Can your grandeur be arrogant when love itself witnesses to it? And what can be real has no witnesses. What good can come of it? And if no good can come of it, the witness to formless awareness cannot use it. What it cannot transform to the will of love does not exist at all. Grandiosity is delusional because it is used to replace your grandeur. Yet what formless awareness has created cannot be replaced. Formless awareness is incomplete without you because its grandeur is total and you cannot be missing from it.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
Where God himself is witness to it, can grandeur be arrogant? The answer is no, because no good can come of it if he was arrogant. Or it cannot be
Well, it has
transformed.
no witnesses. So it's saying in order to recognize the reality of this grandeur, it needs to have witnesses. No good can come of it. The Holy Spirit, the awareness of oneness, cannot use it. Make sense?
Cannot use what? Arrogance.
Yeah, anything. No good can come of it. What can be real, it's talking about what the real, that has no witnesses. Okay. So if something has no witnesses, not really real, what good can come of it? He's talking about the pride and the arrogance of the ego. No good can come of it, then the Holy Spirit, the awareness of oneness, cannot use it. So cannot use pride and arrogance. It cannot transform to the will of God or the awareness of oneness, the Holy Spirit, or the will of God. Awareness of oneness does not exist at all. Okay. So in other words, arrogance doesn't exist at all. It's simply delusional. Grandiosity is delusional. It's used to replace your grandeur. Okay. What's love or pure formless awareness is created cannot be replaced. Not possible to substitute for it. And again, saying, told us this many times, God or love, pure formless awareness is incomplete without you. Because its grandeur is total, so this state, what he's calling grandeur, love, peace, joy, is total. Right? It's a total awareness. You cannot be missing from it. In other words, this awareness is your awareness, and that awareness is incomplete without your mind. As long as one mind remains outside of that awareness, then there's a need for at-one-ment. And that's what we're seemingly doing here. Just going through this process of our own at-one-ment to complete ourselves. God is incomplete. Again, this is kind of poetic license. See, it's just God is incomplete. The pure formless awareness is incomplete without you. So on this level of form, that seems to be true. Because we appear to be here and our minds are rooted in separation. And so pure formless awareness is not complete until every mind is in that state. But in absolute truth, the absolute reality is that there is only this pure formless awareness. And it hasn't changed one iota, no matter what the ego's done. Because the ego is simply not true. None of it has any effect on this pure formless awareness that's eternal. So do you understand what he's doing there? I mean, he uses poetic license, and he's talking about the shift from one level of reality to another. And so he says God is incomplete, but in truth that's impossible. If God was incomplete, then God would no longer be whole, and would mean no perfectly whole state to go back to. So just take it as the it's poetic license to, from our perspective of separation, seems to be true, but not ultimately true. Okay, happy with that? Any questions?
No, that's good. You are altogether irreplaceable in the mind of God. No one else can fill your part in it. And while you leave your part of it empty, your eternal place merely waits for your return. God, pure formless awareness, through his voice, reminds you of it. And God, love itself, keeps your extension safe within it. Yet you do not know them until you return to them. You cannot replace the kingdom, the state of pure formless awareness, and you cannot replace yourself. God, pure formless awareness, who knows your value, would not have it so, and so it is not so. Your value is in love's awareness, and therefore not in yours alone. To accept yourself as pure formless awareness created you cannot be arrogance. To accept yourself as love created you cannot be arrogance.
And try changing created to extended.
Yes, to accept yourself as love extended you cannot be arrogance, because it is the denial of arrogance. To accept your littleness is arrogant, because it means that you believe your evaluation of yourself is truer than God's pure formless awareness.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
I find this interesting, this idea that you are altogether irreplaceable in the mind of God.
So translate the mind of God. You didn't do that when you started. So
yes, oh yes. You are altogether irreplaceable in the awareness of love, the awareness of pure formless awareness. It's saying that we all have a part.
Yeah.
And
if it's pure formless awareness, it must be your awareness too.
yeah.
It must, for it to be all encompassing and the only state, then this must be your state too.
Yes.
So you are irreplaceable in the mind of God. Another way of saying it, but really saying this pure formless awareness, state of pure formless awareness, must be your awareness. That's what it's saying. Because it's true, it's the foundation. So it must also be your awareness, because it's the foundation of your mind. Because it's the foundation of every mind. So no one else can fill your part in it. Okay, he's kind of using poetic license. He's trying to use words to describe what's really beyond words, but no one else can fill your part in it. Okay, so no one else can experience the pure formless awareness that it is your part to experience. Only your mind, seeming fragmented mind, seeming separated mind, can experience that and merge with its source. So there's no one else. So your mind that needs to do this. And your eternal place merely waits for your return. In other words, the state of pure formless awareness simply waits for you to change your mind and to return your awareness to its awareness. As Jesus said in a recent lesson, said, if you want to be different from me, I'll just wait until you change your mind.
Yeah.
and I'll wait for all eternity. There's no time limit to this. I'll just wait and wait until eventually you do change your mind. Okay, then number 3.
Pure formless awareness through his voice reminds you of it, and love himself keeps your extensions safe within it. So I think it's interesting that God reminds us of our connection to him.
Yeah, well, through this, I mean, this remembrance, the remembrance of oneness. His voice is the Holy Spirit. The remembrance of that state, really. That's all it is. It's a memory of the time, not really a time, a state. It was beyond time. It was timeless and eternal and just pure, holy, sinless. So that memory reminds us of itself. The remembrance of oneness reminds us of this transcendent, exalted state of grandeur. And then love itself keeps your extension safe within it. Do you understand that?
So do you know which one?
God himself keeps your extension safe within it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it means that, God keeps our awareness, keeps our, because he remembers us, he keeps our existence alive, keeps our connection with it. Well, his connection to us remains always there.
So the extensions are our own thoughts. So our own love, peace, joy are extensions that are part of this awareness. Love and the peace and the joy are part of this state of mind, this kingdom. But you do not know them until you return to them. So we must return to extending love and love only, rather than substituting for it. You cannot replace the kingdom, which is the state of pure formless awareness, and you cannot replace yourself. So, of course, this is the ego's delusion that we've done both. So love or pure formless awareness, who knows your value, would not have it so. So it is not so. Right? Pure formless awareness simply wants you to accept it and fully and extend it. The value is in God's mind, in the awareness of love, awareness of pure formless awareness, therefore not in yours alone. Okay? You cannot have the idea of being alone is not, it doesn't exist. It's not a true conception. You cannot have your own mind if there is no separation. Okay, it's not arrogant because it's the denial of arrogance. So to be arrogant is to limit your mind, to be little. Except that you are limited, you're not pure formless awareness, you are this little self, is arrogant. It means to believe your evaluation of yourself is truer than God's or love's. So this is the arrogance of the ego, to believe in a little self, or a grandiose self, because it doesn't really matter. They're both not true. Okay, happy with number 10?
Yeah.
This tracks, just to reference it to the art of letting go. Let's actually maybe read this as part of our name your game exercise, because it tracks right into that, doesn't it? To accept this little self in replacement for the true grandeur of what you are is arrogant in the extreme. And so it's to get you to see that to believe you're a victim or whatever you want to believe it's not of love is arrogant. I think didn't you have a problem with that at some point, John? But are you more comfortable with it now?
Yeah, it's fine.
because you're denying, love's idea of you, and you're saying, well, my own idea is the better idea. That's the arrogance of it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then number 11.
Yet if truth is indivisible, your evaluation of yourself must be that of love. You did not establish your value, and it needs no defense. Nothing can attack it nor prevail over it. It does not vary. It merely is. Ask the awareness oneness what it is, and he will tell you. But do not be afraid of his answer, because it comes from pure formless awareness. It is an exalted answer because of its source, but the source is true, and so is its answer. Listen and do not question what you hear, for pure formless awareness does not deceive. It would have you replace the belief in separation's littleness with his own exalted answer to what you are, so that you can cease to question it and know it for what it is.
Okay. Thoughts on that?
Listen and do not question what you hear, for God does not deceive. Sounds like very good advice, really.
Your evaluation of yourself must be God's or love's. God's evaluation of you is your love, so your valuation must be the same. In other words, I am love. Which is the turnaround of the ego's littleness. You do not establish your value, it needs no defense. Want to give us a little summary of that? And then we'll move into a meditation if you're still up for that.
Our value is given us by God and our pure formless awareness, and it doesn't vary. It is exactly as it was given to us. And God or love would have us replace the ego's belief in littleness with his own exalted answer, so that we can stop questioning it and know it for what it is.
Yeah, go beyond doubt, not question. Exalted answer to what you are. And know it. So this is knowledge. Just knowing the state, feeling this exaltation, and undoes the ego entirely. Clavius, when he had that kind of mind-blowing experience in the room, we saw Jesus. He's just in an altered. It's like, whoa! I'm going into something. This isn't belief. This is something deeper. I'm actually getting to know what it is. And cease to question it and know it for what it is. So pointing us again back to the domain of knowledge, from perception to knowledge. Okay. Happy with number 11?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Anyone give me what are the key points? Couple of key points from this, just to summarize. Overview of it.
Grandeur is exalting and enhancing and takes us down the path of right-mindedness and fits in with that grandiosity is of the ego and is belittling and
Arrogant.
Arrogant. That's it. Arrogant. Yeah.
And littleness and grandiosity vacillate. So whether you believe you're little or you're grandiose, both are not true. The answer is to let go of these and accept that we are one with this pure formless awareness, to extend it outwards. We know that it's ours by the extension, by its witnesses, and then we accept it as ours. And the ego's belief in grandiosity and littleness is undone. So yeah, good one. Useful to remember this. Grandiosity comes in quite a lot with the ego and littleness, so it's a good lesson to be vigilant of that in yourself, and you see it in others. You know, you can observe it without condemning them. Just go, okay, I understand what you're trying to do. We probably see this quite a lot. And Kim, if you observe, you'll probably find you get opportunities to do this in the week. Observe in meetings and interactions with people how this plays out. Grandiosity, littleness happens a lot everywhere, but corporate world particularly, because it's either the grandiose, it's a power structure, isn't it? So there's a hierarchy. There's people trying to puff themselves up and self-inflate and be grandiose, and then those that are feeling like hardly done by and the victims, the littleness, and they need each other. Who would the victim be without the grandiose, puffed up, self-inflated leader who's putting him down or her down, so that they can then reinforce their victim story in their mind. So you might say that actually what goes on in the corporate world is just these games of grandiosity and littleness and the vacillation between them. And actually that's the ego's content, and the actual so-called business is just the excuse to play these games, these power games, over and over. Really, that's what's actually going on. Business is busy playing out the ego's thought system, really, most of the time. But if you're going to be the miracle worker, you can just observe all of this and just refuse to play the game. You don't have to believe in it. Take it as your mind training. Your true reason there is to undo all of this in your own mind. Okay, that brings us to the end of the reading of the text. You up for a meditation still?
Yeah, John, I need to sign off.
Okay, no problem, Kim. Thanks for joining us. You did well. There's 2.5 hours or something with us. So
3.5.
Well done, Kim.
Well done. So we started at 8:30, and it's now 11:30, so 3 hours. Yeah. I think you joined a bit late, so well done, and join us in the week if you can. Tuesday, Thursday we do sessions in the evenings.
All right. Good night. Good night, Jono.
Good night, Kim.
Thanks.
Yeah, and a happy birthday for Thursday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Kim's birthday on Thursday, so
Happy birthday and happy Easter.
Yes.
yeah, happy Easter as well.
Easter.
So if
Thank
I don't
you.
see you, there's a presentation on Thursday. If I don't see you, Kim, I'll send you a recording. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Go
you.
well.
Good
Nice day.
night. Good night. Bye.
Good night.
No.
Sue and John, you happy to
Yep.
do a med?
Yeah. Perhaps.
Okay. A bit shorter.
Yeah. But yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. We'll keep it to 15 minutes, shall we? So, just making yourself comfortable. Sitting your feet shoulder width apart. Back straight, cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. And as usual, start off with a nice deep breath in through the nose. Breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, and a subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. And clenching your sphincter muscle to lock the energy in. Draw this energy up the spine to your heart center. Put one hand on your heart. Bring all your attention into your heart space. And just breathing into the heart. Opening your heart to this loving presence. And then draw the energy from your heart into your upper back, all the way up through your neck, the back of your head, into the crown of your head. So that's a maximal inhale breath. Pausing at the top of the inhale. And just think about today's idea. Only God's or love's plan for salvation will work. Only love's plan for my awakening will work, is what it's saying. Realizing that it contains two parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. Love's plan for your awakening will work, and other plans will not. So just remind yourself of that. This is the non-dual nature of things. Only one way is going to work, the other way is not going to work at all. And the one is inherent in the other. So don't allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part because it's inherent in the first. Only love's plan for salvation will work implies that all other plans will not work. So in the first, only love's plan will work is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. So breathe in and just notice what these might have been. So in the past, you might have got attached to other people, places, work, businesses, whatever circumstances you thought would bring you happiness. And if you look at them honestly, with these insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself, be honest and you'll see that they've led to depression and anger. You had all this expectation that this would work and then it didn't work properly, and then you got angry, or you felt depressed and sad because nothing you do seems to work. So either of those emotions is possible. So instead of those, just breathe in. You're breathing in the light of true awareness. Breathe it into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body. Imagine you're breathing in a golden or white light, just enveloping you. Total envelopment. You're in the light, your source, the light of truth. So breathe that light in. You visualize the light, or you just feel this lightness of being coming in, and all depression and anger are undone. So exhale them out with the breeze of your breath. Imagine blowing them away like black smoke out of your mouth, out of your body, out of your energy system. Imagine it's leaving you, it's going, gone to the nothingness it really is. Pull the lower stomach sharply into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. Just letting it all go. To the nothingness that it really is. And just rest here. And I'll devote the remainder of this meditation to asking God or love to reveal its plan to you. I'll ask it very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? So ask these questions and just be still and listen to the answer. Let this voice for God, what needs to be done by you. And hear the answer. Proportion to your willingness to hear its voice. Don't refuse to hear it. The fact that you're doing these exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer or love's answer. So just sinking inwards. To the truth. Beyond your grievances, beyond your expectations and your desires and your grievances. There's the truth that will set you free, that there's a perfect plan for your salvation, for your awakening. So just surrender to that fully for the next couple of minutes of deep silence. There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about, just really relax and be still. Surrender into the silence and the stillness deep in your own mind. This is the eternal presence of love. It's just here to remind you that all is well. You never really left it. Sinking inward deeper and deeper with each breath into the source of your salvation, the source of your awakening. Let your mind go there and just immerse yourself in this holy presence of your own pure, formless awareness. A couple of minutes of deep, contemplative silence. Any thoughts arise, something disturb us, pure formless awareness, just observe them casually and release them. The clouds just drifting by, just blowing them away with the breeze of your breath. To the nothingness they really are. Just letting them all go. Blowing them away and surrendering into this pure formless state of awareness. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just rest here for another minute or so of deep silence and experience the exalted state that Jesus talked about in today's text reading, way beyond littleness and grandiosity. Exalted state of total love, deep peace, joy that is not of this world. Let yourself experience all of these exalted states for another minute or so of deep silence. And so just ask yourself one more time in this exalted state, ask for guidance. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say and to whom? And then wait for the answer, which may come immediately or may come later. You don't know. So don't have any expectation of an answer. Just ask the questions and then let it go, and don't have any expectation, any desire for an answer. So on the count of 3 now, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing the stomach rise and the chest rise. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. Scan your mind again. Notice any thoughts and emotions going on. Any kind of negativity, any dark thoughts, any difficult emotions. Observe them. Remind yourself of today's lesson. Any love's plan for a salvation or awakening will work. Feel the truth of that. It's absolutely true, and there is no alternative to this plan. So just drop all of the resistance to this away, because that's all these thoughts and emotions are. All negative thoughts are emotions, are just resistance. They seem to affirm the opposite, that the ego's thought system, the belief in separation's thought system is true and real. There is an alternative to God's or love's plan for your salvation. So just blow them away with the breeze of your breath. to the nothingness they really are. Notice how the energy subsides back down the front channel of your body from the crown of your head, going down into your stomach, your groin, and the weight of your body on the count of 2, pressing down into the chair, the sofa, feet touching the ground. Noticing what you're feeling with your hands touching. Maybe there's a subtle smell in your nose, maybe a taste in your mouth. Noticing what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Noticing all these sensations from a very still, calm, aware state with no judgment and no interpretation. It's just peace. Notice that peace comes from the truth. This is the exalted state. Carry this exalted state with you to the rest of your evening, your sleep, and on into tomorrow. So it is said, and so it is done. And on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around casually, observing the various objects, people in the room around you, very calmly. There's no judgment. The mind really doesn't have to interpret and name and judge and label any of it. You can stay in the state of pure formless awareness, even while your sense perceptions are engaged. It's all about how you interpret them. That's the problem. So just don't interpret them as anything. Just allow them to be there, and then you stay rooted in the underlying awareness, your pure formless awareness, or the ground of your being, which underlie all sense perceptions, and that keeps you in this exalted state. So that's what I wish for you, a very exalted evening and sleep and day tomorrow until we see each other again. So thanks for joining the session, Sue and John, and namaste.
Thank you for keeping us going.